Welcome back to Gallifrey Stands and the Dr. Squee Show. We are bringing you, I think, what technically counts as our Christmas special, because we're going to be talking about War Games in Colour, which was released at Christmas, and Joy to the World, this year's Christmas special for Doctor Who. I'm Dr. Squee. With me behind me there is Woo. And with it being flu season at the moment, it's freezing cold out there, quite literally here in the UK. So I've got my nursing team in tonight to help me through the show. So first of all, the old matron on the ward, please welcome back to Gallifrey Stands and the Dr. Squee Show, Paul Papa G from Who News. Paul, how you doing?
Good evening. How's things?
Very well, thank you. And bringing up the rear, as it were, in the tight nurse's uniform that I know she only wears so she can come and see me. Please welcome back also Jim King. Welcome to the nursing team.
Thank you, I think.
I don't know. I've lost the plot at this stage. Just enjoy it.
I was expecting an extremely attractive nurse to come on, and then you bring me on. All I'm saying is I think viewers might be a little bit disappointed after that build-up that you gave me there, but...
all I'm saying is, and Paul, take your ears out for a second. All I'm saying is, next to Grandad G, you look like the young spring chicken of the nurse. Put him back in now. Yeah, you're all right, dear.
It's all about expectation management, isn't it? So...
I've always said that, especially Paul has what I always like in a guest, and it's availability at the last minute notice, because I'm crap at planning. Hence why we don't even tell the audience that this is coming up anymore. I'm going to do better this year. That's all I can say. It hasn't started well, but we'll get there. So, guys, I thought we would start off with Joy to the World. So what we're going to do, Paul, and I'm aiming this at Paul first, and I know I'm ribbing you a bit. It is a pleasure to see you, my friend, by the way. Joking all aside. But try and manage this. We're going to try and start with the things we thought were good about the episode. So, get your half a thing ready. and I'm talking about the list. I'm talking about his list of good things. So I will start. We'll kind of take it in the round, and when Paul very quickly runs out, we'll pass it around. So I'll start with Shitty is, of course, fun and flamboyant as ever. We'll just take that as a given one. And Time Hotel, I thought, was a great concept. We'll talk about how well it was used in a bit. Jim, anyone got any thoughts on that? And if not, we'll just crack on with Jim's first good thing that you liked about it.
I agree with you. I think, yeah, I mean, shooting at where, yes, we're sort of, like you say, taking it as a given, but he has just got such raw charisma that he's just so watchable, whatever he's doing. Yeah. And he brings, pardon the pun, given the episode's title, but he's got an infectious sense of joy about everything that he does. Yeah, and I think that works particularly well in a Christmas special, Christmas Day. Obviously, there's moments that I'm sure we'll touch on in this episode that hit a bit harder than that, and maybe a bit of a tonal shift that you might not have been expecting Christmas Day. But He himself, I think, gives a great performance again. And yeah, and again, I agree with you. The Time Hotel, I thought, was a good concept. It doesn't feel completely original. I know we've not done literally a Time Hotel before, but I feel like we've done variations on a central hub with lots of portals before.
Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there. I've got that on the not so great list.
Okay.
Paul, what did you think of the? So we'll start with what do you think of the Time Hotel and the concept and Shooty in general?
The Duty, I thought actually worked. I thought he worked better in this episode than he has in a lot of other episodes, and I don't know if that's because he was effectively meeting somebody new. He didn't have a companion going in there, so effectively he had more screen time to himself. I know there was obviously other characters there, but I thought that was quite nicely done, and I think he seemed more settled in the role. So I think I think it landed better, sort of thing. Yeah, the Time Hotel. Yeah, there was. I could sort of see the appeal of it, sort of thing. It's one of those things. Don't think about it too deeply because it kind of falls apart. But
quickly.
As an idea, I thought it was quite good, sort of thing. Yeah, overall, I didn't think it was too bad. I think it was. I didn't hate it. I wouldn't say I'd sort of rush out and buy it, but it's compared to others, I didn't think it was too bad. Yeah.
I was always going to say, hey, we'll get to the negatives. I know, Paul, that's your highest praise of current. So I'll kind of, I did like the bit where it's like, so first of all, he goes out in his dressing gown, which I believe is a direct replica of Arthur Dent's from
cool.
Code to the Galaxy. At least I think it's the one which they wore in the advertisement for the radio play, as well as I think they use it in the TV show as well, if I'm correct. And I love the Doctor just parked there and popped out for a pint of milk, which was rather nice. And they kind of put my coat on moment.
I really liked that. I thought that was a very Doctor moment that he starts putting his coat on. He's like, why am I picking up the Sonic as well? It's almost like there's some subconscious force that's telling him you need to be doing something here. And then obviously they make that literal where he goes, oh, I've seen something. What have I seen? But it just, to me, very much spoke to the Doctor like he just does these things and then somehow ends up in a much more elaborate adventure than he perhaps bargained on. But yeah, I thought that was a very, very good character beat.
Mr. G?
Yeah, likewise, sort of thing. It was that almost that muscle memory that is, as you say, sort of subconsciously, he just, he's triggered, and it's like, okay, he's already ramping up to investigate, to look into what's going on, his spider sense is tingling, and he's picked up on something is not quite landing, not quite right, so it needs investigation. So.
I also love the idea
nice
that the Doctor's triggered for a change and not the fan base. Okay, we'll go through a few more of the kind of positives that might run out soon. Okay, so we'll do a bit on casting. So we've got Nicola Coughlan, I thought was amazing for all the time we saw her, and we might get onto that on my negative list. Johnny Fry was great, and I was convinced that he'd been in Doctor Who before for some reason, but wasn't apparently. Like I was
who
sure,
was he?
He was the bellhop guy, like who's in
Trev.
everything. He was in Games of Thrones,
Trev, yeah.
Game of Thrones. He's in lots of stuff. He's done a lot of Doctor Who audio, and I was sure he'd done the show at some point. And I was looking to see if they just used him twice, which it's perfectly fine, but doesn't seem so. I think he's just one of those character actors which appears in everything, so you just assume they've been in something like Doctor Who over time. And I'll just lump this in. So the casting, and also I just like the idea about I'm just where did you find all these police boxes? Just find them online. They're surprisingly popular for some reason, which I thought was just a rather nice little gag.
Yeah.
So over to you guys on that a lot.
I really liked Trev, the character. It felt like And again, yeah, I'm sure we'll get onto it, but it feels like in all the run up to this and all the publicity, they were presenting it as this is going to be our guest companion. And as you say, her screen time is relatively brief, but it is almost like the going through potential companions.
In fact, you know what? So just while you're there, feck it. Let's just say it. Where the feck was Nicola Coughlan? I was just pissed off at this. I mean, we'll get on to my negative list in a minute, but fucking hell, this one pissed me. Like
she
I'm
wasn't
a real
in it
fan of hers.
much.
She's amazing. So great in drama, comedy, everything. Derry Girls was amazing. So much looking forward to about 5 minutes of screen time, and they seem to pick up a story as if she'd been there all the time. Sorry, back to you, Jim.
No, I agree, and it was certainly presented as though she was going to be the main companion for the episode in much the same way like Catherine Tate was the first time she appeared, or Kylie was in that Titanic episode. You know, that's what we were led to expect by the BBC's publicity machine, and that's not what we got. But playing devil's advocate, if we, that's not the episode's problem. That's what was done after the fact. So I like the way we're introduced to like this character of Trev, who he could well be a companion, and they strike up this bond really, really quickly. You feel something when he gets killed early on. I know he gets a bit of a reprise at the end. So I thought that was really well done. Like I've written in my notes, poor Trev. And that's good for someone who's not had much screen time at all to have made a bit of an impact. And then likewise, the character of Anita, who she's the real companion for this episode.
Sorry, you're right. I should have showed out her as well. Great performance as well.
If we were singling out a character as this is the Doctor's companion for this episode, I felt it was Anita, like the meat of the story, the whole middle act, if you like, of the story is this very domestic, mundane for the Doctor relationship that he strikes up. And again, I think it paints it in broad strokes, but it does so in a fairly condensed time frame. But you feel the connection between them, and just nice little details like they have board game night that they call chair night or whatever it is, and you do get a real sense that they've built up this relationship over this short period of time, and it makes it very poignant when he has to leave. I thought all that section was done really, really well. Yeah,
just add to that, because and it's also very Stephen Moffat to have this idea of the Doctor's there stuck, but what you don't notice is he's doing something a bit else. He's saying it's like he was observing Joy's life through this hotel room. That's a very sort of Stephen Moffat thing of kind of making you look one way while he's doing something the other. And I didn't see that coming. I will give them that. It still felt a bit of a counter reason not to have Nicola Coughlan in it for most of the episode, but it's a very Moffat way of writing. Sorry, just to that point there, mate.
And there was that fun joke about the sat nav, like it doesn't take me where I want to go, and it takes you where you need to go. I thought that was a really good line. Maybe a bit overkill going on. Why is my car blue now? Like, okay, we got it. Never mind. But stuff like that, it's fun. I think with the Christmas episodes, I'm maybe willing to be a bit less nitpicky than I might be on a weekly episode, because there is that everybody sat round after Christmas dinner full of food. Wallace and Gromit's on next, so we don't want anything too challenging. All
right. It's still Doctor Who, mate.
Yes, it is.
Don't want anything too challenging.
No, we've had some. Like, what was that one that the Capaldi's first one, where it was like Inception? That one was pretty
deep breath.
Deep breath.
No, its first Christmas one. Sorry, where it was with Santa in it, and I remember thinking
that was amazing. Yeah,
I remember
Last Christmas.
Yeah, Nick Frost. I remember watching that one, thinking like, "Oh, I'm glad I didn't have that second glass of Bucks Fizz this morning. So this one's pretty intense for Christmas Day." But no, I thought this one was generally, again, a particular scene at the end accepted, quite a light sort of fluffy romp for most of it, which I had a lot of fun with. Are we going to talk about the ending? Not the ending, but the things with Joy's mum, or
Well, is this on your good or bad list? We're going
that's
through
on
the
my
good stuff at the moment.
that's on my good
Yeah,
list.
go for it.
I
Don't like to
thought
assume. I don't know.
no, I thought there was a little bit of anger that came out of Moffat's writing in that, particularly where you've got talking about the government at the time having parties and blah de blah while a mum's dying, and I thought it was very powerful and quite unexpected. Like when she delivered that little speech, I thought, whoa, I didn't expect them to go there. Like there's not many dramas that touch on COVID in that way, and especially not many family dramas, and especially not many family dramas that are broadcast at 6 o'clock on Christmas Day. That was pretty hard hitting.
There's because it does. I'm glad they did that, to be frank, because
I am as well.
I've got it before where people say, just with an assumption, it's like, oh well, none of us stuck to the rules during COVID. It's like, no, I did. I did. Like
absolutely,
I could probably think of a couple of things like, okay, I might have once, me and my partner at the time both went into Sainsbury's separately, but we both went in. That was breaking a rule. Like little things like that I may have done. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but people like, oh yeah, we all had a few people around. It's like, totally did not. If nothing else, I have a mum which I would be scared to death would somehow get something if I visit her. And just passing on to anyone who might be like, really, that meant a lot to me. And I'm not judging people who didn't. Like I try not to, at least. But don't assume that everyone didn't because you didn't. So I kind of sort of like he brought this up.
No, absolutely,
really did. And it's like it brings up the whole thing of the Queen being there in that famous picture. Like, and you can say what you like about the royal family being pampered and all this money they don't need, fair, but it's like you can't deny that act when our government were partying, and so I was really glad they covered this, to be frank.
I was glad they covered it. It was just the context of it I wasn't expecting, and then after having allude to that in the dialogue, I really didn't expect them to show it visually later in the episode, and I just think, again, contextually, this is a Christmas special of the BBC's Crown Jewel family show. It's going out at that time on Christmas Day when there's going to be lots of kids watching, and it's something that is very depressing. I mean, they present it in a way that's quite heartwarming, but even so, it just really kind of took me aback for a moment that they did that, and I do think it's a good thing, but just very unexpected.
I think you raise a good point there as well, because some of the people who are watching this who are young adults now will have been children during this time. Like this would have been very formative to them, and their relationship to COVID, I don't even want to kind of imagine how that might I don't know how they perceive it. I don't know if it hits them worse because they missed out on a part of their childhood because of it. Probably so. I don't want to assume that, just because I don't want to speak for a generation I just know so little about, but it's just, that'd be really interesting to see how they perceive that, because that was an interesting point. Paul, you got anything like what are your huge list of positives to add to that?
Well, I think there was a sort of thing that struck me were sort of thing is they simply sort of try and introduce a lot of character. I mean, you had Trevor, you had Anita, you had Joy, sort of thing. So actually trying to give them enough screen time so you actually engage with them, sort of thing, is a bit tricky. And I think that's where Nicholas suffered. Sort of like hugely. I know I think it's been sort of said that Anita, the character, initially had like a couple of lines, but because she performed so well, they actually extended her role sort of quite substantially. She wasn't, in the first draft and what have you. It wasn't supposed to be like that.
Was Nicola? I'm just wondering that, given if maybe Nicola Coughlan's availability changed, because obviously she's doing Bridgerton, she's doing a lot of other. She's involved in a few different shows, I believe, at the moment.
Yeah, maybe sort of thing, but yeah, certainly I don't think that was the original intention, sort of thing, and I think that's why you ended up seeing actually most of what she delivered in the trailers that were shown beforehand. You didn't see a great deal more than that.
Well, they even released the scene at the beginning with the pumpkin spiced latte, which is like, that's actually quite a fun scene if you haven't seen it shown already.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah. So but I thought, but given sort of like I think it's it shows the quality of the acting sort of thing, because the likes of Trev, you engaged with, you actually sort of like thought, oh damn, it's a real shame sort of thing, because you could he actually had like presence and interest as potentially being a companion and going on to be part of the TARDIS group. That would have been interesting to see. I thought that Anita was really, really good. But like you say, sort of thing, I think where I struggled more, sort of thing, is when it got towards the the end of the episode and you ended up with hospital scene, and I'm sort of thinking, okay, you could do that maybe in the series, you could tackle that kind of stuff. But Christmas, people are tuning in, they want something bright, breezy, bit light, bit of fluff, that kind of thing, which is normally the Christmas specials. Necessarily we want to be reminded about this kind of stuff. They don't necessarily, if you've got, I think like the audience figures for children was something about 500,000 children watched it, sort of thing. It potentially raises some awkward questions for for kids that night going to bed, because it does land with them. It does sort of think to them, hang on, what happens if my parents pop off, that kind of thing. And also, Christmas is one of those very poignant times where people do lose parents, they do lose relations, sort of thing, and it's not, and Christmas sort of like emphasizes that it's always an occasion that marks that anyway. So I sort of struggled a bit with the BBC this Christmas, because the Outnumbered special was, I don't know if you saw that sort of thing, that had one of the characters there, the dad in that sort of thing, coming out and saying he had cancer and his cancer treatment. You sort of think, once again, this is, Outnumbered. It's supposed to be a comedy. It's supposed to be lighthearted. People are looking for an escape. They're not looking to be reminded or to have a message at this time of year, sort of thing. That they want to put on they want their Wallace and Gromit, but in a different form. So.
Yeah, no, I do see your point. I think I just enjoyed the fact they tackled it. Perhaps it may have blinded me to some of the points you very rightly both raise. No, some salient points from both of you. So
I've just thought, because I did watch this sort of on delay, because we had Christmas dinner, and by the time that was finished, Doctor Who was halfway through. So we were like, oh, well, we'll leave that. We'll all watch Wallace and Gromit together. And then me and my brother watched Doctor Who afterwards when we got back to his place. So I didn't have the experience of going from this straight into Wallace and Gromit, and I wonder maybe a bit of a sense of whiplash there, maybe. Just before we leave the good stuff, can I just say I enjoyed the way he used all the different doors, like when they had to pull the thing off, so he goes through into the train and hooks it, and I thought that was fun. That was.
There was a nice little joke about the pizza thing. Yeah, that was a bit of fun, bit of Christmas fun. Again, to your point, the sort of thing that may be too lame a joke on the regular run, but it's kind of quite a fun. It's almost like a Christmas cracker joke in a Doctor Who episode. It kind of fits.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I am gonna so these are the things which I didn't like as much, and you actually made me think of another one which I had to add to my notes while we were talking, Jim. So this one of these at least isn't your fault. So this is my list of seems like Moffat's greatest hits done badly in this episode. So we've got a dim-witted, eternally kind character, much like used in the first River Song episode, Silence in the Library, when you had the character who was dim-witted and then her memory got accelerated through a machine, much like his kind of seems to do here. We got twist on time travel, which is like Moffat loves doing that. That's a kind of big
Yeah.
theme in his. Dinosaurs have featured a couple of times in Doctor Who episodes of his. 11th Hour. This was what you made me think of. What Have I Not Seen? They do this time motion thing with the 11th Doctor seeing all the angles around this park. Kind of recreated here. Stuck on Earth for a year like they did in The Power of Three. So yes, you have had a life like this before, Doctor, and you didn't like it then. Getting told to get a mate by the companion in the special, and then walking through then walking through the time looked. Oh yeah, and walking through the different time doors looked a lot like the cabs in Gridlock, where you had the different character rooms, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, the last two were RTD, but you get my point. It just seemed a bit of a greatest hits ride of and like if you're going to go through old episodes of Moffat, Power of the Three was the weakest, like ever. Like I think it's one of his weakest ever, and that was the one which introduced Kate Stewart, which is funny because I really enjoyed her inclusion.
Well, you don't have to actually go back that far because you've only got to go back to Tudor's first season with Boom, which is a Moffat episode, which is about a massive weapon. Is a weapon where somebody's going to die if they touch it. It gets saved by a holographic computer intelligence that gets uploaded, sort of thing, that then solves the problem. It's a reworking of it. To be honest, it was a let's do this. Let's take that idea and just tweak it a bit. So
it's really funny. Brings me on to my next point because I was going to say about the villain guard are a great back reference, but not a really exciting baddie in this. The briefcase and that being that it can go from one person to another and thus transmit almost you as the Manchurian candidate, like by transmission, was an interesting idea. But really, it didn't feel like an ever-present threat. We went to another time to another hotel, so it didn't even feature through most of it. So again, you get this thing of like the threats established at the beginning. We go somewhere completely different, and then they go back like nothing happened, like with picking up Nicola Coughlan again. Yeah, from her perspective, it didn't stop. From ours, it did. Like, and that just breaks any tension you've got in the actual bad guy of this. And as you say, like, I didn't piece it together, but of course, with Boom, you had Villain Guard. So I think he was I think it was meant to be a clever homage to like back reference the tech he used there, but it's like it sort of plays, as you say, like the same joke, really.
Yeah.
Jim?
I have to admit, when the episode started and it established all the different time frames, my heart did sink a bit. I thought, oh, no, it's going to be one of them types of Moffat episodes. And I do largely enjoy his writing. But I was like, again, I think it's the Christmas Day thing. I was like, I really don't want a complex paradox episode. And it didn't turn out to be that, but the opening.
Well, it sort of created the star that they followed to Bethlehem, so it's a little bit messy.
Yeah, I mean that.
Just the touch over the top at the end.
That was the moment that
Yeah, you don't want anything too big with time travel. Only the creation of religion.
Yeah, I mean there were religions before that, but no, that was a step way too far. But I'll get on to that. But yeah, and then Valengard. I think this isn't Moffat's fault. This is Russell T Davis's fault. But we had the whole Sutek, blah blah blah. I thought Valengard, it's going to unscramble and it's going to be the Veil Yard, and that's going to be the villain of this episode. But
Valeyard. Sorry, I've got to say, I'm too much of a nerd not to.
Valeyard.
I don't feel good about doing that. Sorry, I don't feel good about correcting you. I had to.
And can we drop the Mavity jokes now? Like,
yes, please.
It wasn't that funny the first time, and I've had enough. I've had enough. Just no, go away.
It's part sorry, just on that point. This is part of Moffat. RTD, where I think it just like his overreach on the show. Really, it is like he's fallen in love with his own stuff a little too much. I'm glad he's always been really confident in his wonderful ability as a writer. I'm not taking any of that away from him, But it's when he's in an interview going, it's like, well, Mavity's just going to stay forever. It's a great job. People forever will have to use Mavity and Doctor Who, like, for as long as I'm writing it. It's like,
well,
like that's very, but he talks that same way about like stuff like not having any law, so any rule can be broken in Doctor Who. It's like, it's great as an idea of killing babies, but if you don't have any rules, then nothing means anything anymore. Like you don't have any consistency to a show. And it's like, it's all these big ideas that he's going, it's like, nope, this is it. Now it's like, well, do we all want that? Like, just because you like, and not having any, it was no one, it turns out in the end of Ruby's whole story. It's like, oh, yay. Like,
so
yeah, it's a great idea
like
to do that.
the traitors, like,
yeah.
Sorry, anyway, yeah. Sorry, mate.
But yeah, so Mavity I've had enough of. But I'll call it now then. Next year's Christmas special is going to be a musical crossover with Wicked, and they're going to sing Defying Mavity as the show-stealing number at the end.
And I believe, Jim, you're going to sing us out with that tonight.
Hey, I can sing that any day of week. Just need a bit
and
more.
And it'll be different enough from the original tune that we won't have to worry about copyright.
Absolutely. And you mentioned like the stuff about the Doctor sort of saying, oh, this is why you're always alone, and you know, you should try and find a friend and so on. To me, that felt like that was written for Tennant's Doctor or even Matt Smith's Doctor. It didn't feel to me to fit with this idea of Ncuti Gatwa's Doctor, where it's no, he doesn't have all that baggage that he had from the previous incarnations, and I don't want him to go down that road. I like this idea of a Doctor who's got more of a sense of fun and everything, and you know, if his character is going to develop and he's going to change and he's going to go darker, fair enough. But I feel like we're only still just getting to know him. This is only his 10th full episode, I think. Yeah. You know, I don't want to do that, and it doesn't feel true to this Doctor yet. So that just stuck out to me a little bit. I
agree. And
a little bit. Did you write this for a different Doctor and then just repurpose it? Which I don't think was the case, but it kind of felt like that to me.
I mean, that wasn't what I meant. I meant with Nicola Coughlan at the end when she goes, "Oh, you need a friend, Doctor. Don't be on your own." Like they say with all the Christmas companions, they tell them to get their mate back again or get a new mate.
True, yeah.
But no, I agree with you on that. I think, yeah, we love Ncuti because he is so much larger than life. Yeah, he's intense, and yeah, they have purposely made him very emotional Doctor. Some said to a flaw, but I do like the emotionality. Like sometimes I agree they could dial it back a little bit, but generally I think that's part of his character. So yeah, I'm with you. Like he's not a dark Doctor. Like don't make him a dark. Like why would you? Like why would you cage such a huge spirit? Like that's what his Doctor. Like that seems fundamental to his Doctor, I would say.
And then yeah, my biggest con was just that last shot, and if it worked for you, great. I don't mind a little bit of cheese with my Christmas programming, but to me, like I thought it reached its emotional crescendo when it had the scenes in the hospital and the mum turned into stardust and everything. I thought that was beautiful. And then they had to tack on, and Ncuti, bless him, does his best. Of course, your joy, of course it is. And you just got that sinking feeling, oh no, they're not going to have it. And then there's camels there, and you just say, oh no. And then it comes up with the caption. When they start singing
Power of Love, when they start singing Power of Love, I didn't see that coming, I must admit.
And then you get the caption, Bethlehem 0001. And I just, oh no.
Make love your
I mean, I won't besmirch your podcast by repeating the exact phrase that I said at the time, but the second word of it was off.
And it was very off.
No, it was too much for me. It was, as the kids say, it was cringe.
It was well cringe in it, G. Speaking of G.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Sort of thing, you know, it should have ended before that. And as soon as you got that, it was just, it comes back to that. You just can't resist, can't help themselves. There's no self-control sort of thing.
No.
You have to sort of stick that thumbprint on the the history of the show once again. So it's
Yeah.
I think that there is also that the thing of no one. I think these elements that RTD wants to bring in did chime with Disney. I think they lapped up the idea. I'm like, I do think sometimes people go over the top with like Disney are just trying to make everything work. I think that's not the truth either, but I do see sometimes when they kind of like just throw something in where it doesn't kind of fit. I don't think it's all the time, like people say, but it's like, like there was a bit where David Tennant as the 14th Doctor said about like he or she, and I think it was Rose said them, and it's like you would actually have. I could imagine John Pertwee, any of the other Doctors going, it's like, oh, you're he or she or them, because it's like it's an alien, it's a fucking alien for fuck's sake, if nothing else. Like them is surely possible on an alien sphere, if not on ours. Like even if people are weird about it on our planet, you've got to accept that like this is an alien he's talking to. It just like, but here it did seem it just
And
seems
also,
like there's no one to tell RTD it's like that's too far, that's
no,
too, like rein in a little bit. And I think he got that with previous deals that he maybe doesn't get with Disney in this.
So does this mean that canonically Jesus as the Son of God exists in the Doctor Who universe? And if so, is he going to have a fight with Sutek? Because the whole thing was we're introducing these gods. I'm being flippant, but that is what it suggests. If we're gonna play around with Egyptian gods and have them as active participants in the story, there's no reason we can't do that with Christian gods, except that it would offend a lot of people. And so if you don't want to dip your toe in that water, don't do that ending of that episode because it's just
And RTD's already like he's done so many episodes where he's talked about the fact that God doesn't exist. Like he early on, he particularly seemed to love putting that into episodes scattered here and there, which I never even liked them. I don't particularly believe in God, but I don't like religion. I don't like atheism. Doctor Who is aside from religion. It just religion isn't something that's been ever like, apart from people's kind of like manipulation of religion being used by aliens, that kind of thing's been used before. But generally, religion's never been a head-on subject for Doctor Who that I can think at all prior to the new show. And I would prefer it just keeps out my Who. Just separation of church and state. That's all I'm asking for.
I'm rethinking it now though, because Joy becomes a star as part of an alien thingamajig. So canonically in the Doctor Who universe, the Star of Bethlehem was not put there by God to lead the people to Jesus. Yeah. So is it saying that it's one of them that if you think about it too much, it will offend someone. And it offends me just as a viewer because I just thought it was awful. But I have no take on the religious side of it.
I think what it's meant to say is like, well, this happened, and that's what the myth was based on. And like, Jesus was a person, but he was just a man. I think it's RTD's. I think it's kind of low-key atheism. I think kind of Christians could watch this and go, oh, they include the Star of David and be very happy and not, like you say, not think of another level. I think atheists could look at it and giggle. And I think this is probably the low-key joke that RTD was doing, was like, well, that was just created by an alien. Like, none of this is real. Like, just I feel like RTD, that's his kind of.
Didn't Chris de Burgh sing a song about it? Wasn't that? That was Chris de Burgh's Christmas song, wasn't it?
God, sorry.
Thanks for putting that in my head. Yeah, that's all right.
One of the worst Christmas songs ever. And Ruby pops up at the end, doesn't she?
Ruby does pop up.
Yeah,
she does.
I forget what she actually does. Sorry, I didn't get time to watch it back in. What
She
did she
speaks
do?
to her mum.
Yeah, she speaks to a
Yeah,
mum and
nothing,
she
isn't
looks
it?
at the star, and the star's
How did I forget
connecting
that?
everybody and spreading joy, and it,
Spreading joy.
it was I thought, and I might be being soppy, but I genuinely thought it was lovely until that Bethlehem bit, and then I was just, oh, go away. It just, no.
I just, it's the most I've ever felt one of the Christmas specials. Like, there's some I like better than others, but this really just felt like a first draft. I feel like this is the one where you go, oh, you've got too many storylines going on. We forget about this for too long. You bring this in more. You've got to kind of go back to the drama of it. You know, it's not like it doesn't have all the makings of a really good story. And I agree with you guys about the Trevor. I thought he was great, really likable character. And I sort of, I said about like the Moffat callbacks, but that is just a Doctor Who staple. It's like, it's not about how clever you are, it's how much heart you've got. So I don't mind them revisiting that. I was just trying to point out how many there were. But yeah, it just didn't come together for me. Any last thoughts, Paul, on this one?
Not really, to be honest, sort of thing. You know, I was going to watch it again in preparation for this, but I never made it to it, sort of thing, and I decided to watch the War Games instead. So,
oh, segue and a half, my friend.
Excellent.
We now continue in glorious Technicolor as we go into the War Games. So I thought we'd sort of start just talking a little bit about the War Games in of itself, and how it came to be the kind of behemoth of an adventure that it was. Paul, I think you could probably remember the details a bit better than me, but generally the story goes that they had so many episodes planned, but because, and as I say, correct me in a second where I go wrong here, but I believe it was the case of they were trying to nail down what they were going to do with Doctor Who going forward and who the new Doctor was going to be and that kind of thing. And because of that, they kept on giving it more episodes, because they didn't have a replacement yet as well. And so, you know, they were writing on the fly. And so that's why, even though we'll discuss what we thought of what they cut, it was kind of, or I would say certainly right for some pruning as a just like, you know, and again, it's sort of like not really the writer's fault, but that it just ended up going here, there and everywhere.
Yeah, it is a bit of a marathon, to be honest. The 10 episode that it, you know, originally was broadcast, and then ironically, if you've ever read the Target novel sort of thing, the Target novel is sort of like yay thick, that kind of thing, where Terrence Dicks has just sort of like, you know, streamlined it down.
Terrence Dicks.
Yeah, but yeah, you know, it holds a lot of you know, sort of like, because it is a regeneration story, it has a special place in most Doctor Who fans, you know, hearts.
Yeah.
It's a, you know, it's a very poignant sort of like parting of the ways between the Doctor and his companions in a way that you haven't seen before. It's you know, it's a good. It can be a bit ploddy. It can be a bit slower. I'd be the first to say that. You know, if you're watching the 10 episoder, and as you say, you could pick up the pace and you could prune it down a little bit, sort of thing. But yeah, it was an interesting one to pick to colorize. I think the colorization worked really, really well. I must confess. I thought that looked excellent.
If we can just I just wanted to get Jim's way on the original, then we'll go into that because I agree with that very much. But just very quickly to add to that, I also think it's kind of like the first, because you say it was kind of the first goodbye of this kind, like real kind of. It's not the Doctor's chosen to say goodbye; the companions chosen to say goodbye. They're forced apart, and I think it kind of sums up that Troughton did just he was the first Doctor to bring that extra emotional depth to it. I figured before, like, you know, whenever Hartnell was saying goodbye, it was a wonderfully poignant speech, and it was just, it's something. It was a really well written scene. You'd enjoy it, but the emotion was kind of kept at arm's length as society dictated at the time. I figured that the kind of like the joy and the heart which Troughton brought to it, I believe, kind of really adds to the emotional punch of this exit for a Doctor, as well as what you're saying with the kind of companion separating. Jim, on the original kind of War Doctors.
The original, I love it. I'm a really big fan of Patrick Troughton. Like, Sylvester McCoy was my Doctor, by accident of birth. I just happened to be
All
that
right,
age
kid.
at that time. So Sylvester McCoy was always my Doctor, but then when I sort of got more into previous Doctors, I really gravitated towards Troughton, and which is ironic because a lot of his episodes are missing, and even now still missing. But the ones you can see him full, and I think partially maybe that's why the War Games is so popular as well as it being a regeneration story. It's a long Patrick Troughton story, but it's complete. And as far as I know, it's always been complete. I don't think War Games has ever had any missing episodes. And so it's always been one that you can sit down and watch all of. And yes, it is very long, but TV was paced differently in them days, and it was designed to be consumed differently. And I've watched this one several times. It's one of them where if I'm in the mood for watching a lot of Doctor Who, it's just perfect to stick on and watch. But it also works episodically. You can watch a couple at a time, and it does have distinctive sort of acts to the story. Like, it starts off as, well, they're trapped in the First World War, and that goes on for a couple of episodes, and then it's, oh wait, there's other armies as well, and then it's, oh no, wait, it's aliens, and you get that for a couple of episodes, and then it's, wait a minute, we're bringing the Time Lords in. And so even though it is long, I don't necessarily feel it's plodding, because the story does move. If it was just World War One for 10 episodes, then I should imagine that would get tedious. But I feel that every time it threatens to get a little bit dull, they throw in another twist to the tale, and it keeps it going. And in terms of like the amount of lore that we get from it,
yes,
it was just incredible. I mean, things that we take absolutely for granted now. But I mean, you've got what's he called, the War Chief, who, okay, if they'd have thought of him, that'd have probably been the Master, but he isn't. But he's got a bit of a goatee, and he appears to be a rogue Time Lord.
And while we're on that, like, I mean, here they bring in a sound effect to sort of like try and cement that it is a Time Lord, and it's like but yeah, oh, sorry, go on.
I was just gonna sum up, just say, I've always been a big fan of this episode, and I remain so. But we'll get on to my thoughts on what they've done with it here. But
no, I mean, production-wise, it's quite a triumph as well, sort of thing, because it's the amount it tries, it's bringing in, you've got Romans, you've got the American Civil War, you've got the First World War, the sets, the outside, the outside footage, shooting and what have you. There's loads of it. It's a big old production, this one. It's not 4 episodes in a studio by any stretch of the imagination.
And to both your points, like, you've got to hand it to these writers. They were pretty much on a weekly basis. Like, there wasn't any writing time. It was just like, we're going for another few weeks. You've got a week to sort of, like, I don't know if they're probably given a couple of weeks notice because they have to program, but still not a lot of time to write what, like, as you say, Jim, I honestly, I agree. I think it does stand up. I think you can still cut bits here and there from episodes, but
you could.
It is of such high quality when they're writing on the fly, it's quite astounding.
And a lot of it's outdoors as well, which does make a difference if you're writing it and filming it on a tight deadline. You don't have the control you do within a studio. So, that's a bit crazy, really. Like, we need another 2 episodes. Yeah, okay, but we're doing it on location. Like, what? They could have done the classic, I know it's a cliche and it's a joke and everything, but it does happen, particularly in the longer serials where you need an episode to pad it out, so let's have them running up and down a corridor for an episode. And there's a bit of that, but not to the extent like the one I always go back to is I can't remember, it's episode 3 or 4 of the original Daleks serial, the William Hartnell, and it's literally them all just jumping over a hole in a cave for an episode, and the 3 of them do it and they're okay, and then the last one falls in, and that's your cliffhanger. But that is the whole episode. Nothing else happens.
Can I throw it as well? And Paul can tell me which episode this is, and you might be able to even, Jim. But there's an episode where I'm pretty sure it's Tom Baker, and they go into the TARDIS and they're chased in there. It might be like by some alien race, and they go into the depths of the TARDIS, but because obviously they couldn't afford a test, they're just running around a school. I think it is. It's like it's really obviously not in the TARDIS.
It's the invasion of time, and they're running around a hospital in Red Hill. That's
and it doesn't look anything like it's connected to the TARDIS whatsoever. No attempt to even just go. Like they could have just put a couple of roundels on the wall. Nah, too much budget. Like you just borrow it from the set. Anyway, sorry, Paul. You were saying before. Now Jim's made us feel all old with his I go back as far as Sylvester McCoy. I go back to Peter Davidson. Paul goes back to Dr. Watson, I think was his first doctor. I mean, come on.
Peter Cushing,
Sorry, go on, sir. Colorization, you correctly brought up.
Yeah, colorization. I thought it looked fantastic. It's
come along a lot.
It did come on a long way, and it wasn't jarring. It seemed to work really well, and it seemed to really, some of the certainly the sets in the Warlords HQ and things like that. You sort of think, it's really, really nicely done. It works so well compared to, I never made it through the colorization of the Daleks sort of thing.
It was not good.
The pink and blue hues were just too much for me. So
they purposely, and I think they said they did it to differentiate, or someone had a theory they did it to differentiate the colors. Actually, it might have been you, Jim, who maybe. But anyway, they chose to change the color on a few bits, and it's like they had Barbara in what was originally, I think, a blue dress or something. And they put her in this pink dress, and it's just like Barbara never dressed like that. It just really, I know we never saw the color, but it's just so out of character for that character. And given we know that wasn't the original color, even if you want to mix it up and use a different color to make it work better, it just looked awful.
To me, it looked kind of washed out. The Dalek one, didn't look like the colors quite worked, and
it might be even because the black and white was earlier, so even the black and white was.
Well, that was something I was going to say. I take a bit of issue just with the whole idea of doing it. I think as a technical feat, it's great. But why? But so my main complaint is, if you're going to spend money on Doctor Who and sprucing it up and blah blah blah, can we finish animating all the missing episodes first? Let's get it to the stage where there is a watchable, available version of every episode. I know there's telesnaps, I know there's reconstructions, but to my mind, I would like to be able to sit down uninterrupted and watch a full serial. And there's still numerous episodes they've not done that with. And they always say, it's very expensive to animate it. Look, do that first. And then if you
would do it.
Go mad, treat yourself to colorizing all the episodes you want after that. But can I please just have a legal, convenient way to watch all the episodes that are still out there in the ether? So that's my rant. In terms of colorizing it, I agree. I think it looked great. I forgot the gimmick halfway into this. I was just watching it. I'm not sure it achieves what they're wanting it to achieve, which the argument I've read is, kids these days don't want to watch a black and white show, so we're making it color to get in with the kids. Do you honestly think that is going to work? Because great as it looks colorized, it still doesn't look like modern TV because it's not. Things were filmed differently. They used different camera stock. And so if that's your justification for doing it, you're on a hiding to nothing because, and I don't actually believe this. Like, I don't believe all children are averse to anything that's not super modern. Like, I became a fan of the original Star Trek and the Twilight Zone when, I was my early teens, or I was 10 or whatever age I was. So it is not inconceivable that a kid who likes Doctor Who can sit down and watch the old stuff. And I don't believe this will remove that barrier if that barrier exists.
No, to that point, I think it becomes a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy because they don't think they'll watch it. They don't put it out there. Like, you don't see it. It's not like really black and white. How rare is that now shown on TV? Like, it's I saw a black and white film on the other day. I was nearly blinking from surprise. It had been so long since I saw one, even on BBC Two, which used to be, it was just standard kind of Saturday, Sunday was a black and white. Now there's so many color things available. Like, there's just so many more made each year, let alone kind of just the stock building over time, that they avoid showing it. And then so of course when the kids do see it, I think it makes it more likely to happen because they see it and go, well,
I do think there is a barrier. I'm being glib and I'm perhaps being a little bit snobbish. Like, to my mind, it's like, no, just sit down and watch the black and white ones and appreciate them for what they were. And I get that people may not do that, but I don't believe this solves that problem. So why do it other than to show off the fancy things you can do with technology, which is great? But that just takes me back to my original rant, which is, if you're going to spend money on it, can we have the episodes we haven't got first? Then you can do what you want.
Well, just finally on the colorization, the only other thing I want to add was really just like, I just remember, as you guys might, seeing Spearheads from Space and some of those other, like, was it Spearheads from Space? It was certainly some of the, like, I remember it being a couple of Pertwees, I think, were the first ones to get the colorization treatment. And it looked like you were ready to put on your 3D glasses because it was like they overlaid a few things and they didn't have the technology, or at least not affordably, to merge them together properly. So it was like, it was clearly layers on top of layers.
Well, Pertwees...
So I just the amount of change that's happened within our lifetime in this process to get to here, just as you say, technologically, it is quite astounding.
Well, the Pertwee ones were interesting though, because they were filmed in color, but then I think the color prints of some of them were lost, so we only had black and white prints.
We found it in Australia. Yeah, that's a really good point. Razorhead, our good friend who helped us out on Twin Peaks Pods, is here. Hello there, and he laughed at something we said at 7:45. So. You can work out what that is by yourself. Sorry, I've just seen those comments there, my friend. Good to have you with us, Razorhead. So, well, we've done the colorization. So before we get into a bit more of the content of the colorized version, the score. Now, I'm going to say the same as I felt. Now, I get with the Daleks in color, as much as it wasn't my cup of tea, it was kind of, it was interesting, and I could see what they were going. Like, to watch it once actually was a kind of like weird. I mean, if I was going to watch it again, I would want some acid before, like, put in your 3D glasses, drop your acid, watch this. Great. They were definitely going for a 60s romp. It was almost like they'd Austin Powers Doctor Who in a way, like, with that big bombastic score, the mega cuts and everything. It just felt like that kind of brassy tone. I'm not even sort of saying they were taking the mick like Austin Powers, just like the way that's set up as a super fast music video almost of the 60s with the surrealism. But that was something in of itself. This one, so I get why the score there was very big and fanciful, and it kind of fit what they were doing on that occasion. This time it's just the original episode with a modern score from Murray Gold, and it just doesn't work. Like, it's not sympathetic to the piece. It doesn't match with the action. Like, I mean, I want to praise how one, like, I want to be very clear. Murray Gold is a legend. The music he does in the new series is so moving so often. It just doesn't I was hoping his skills would be adaptable to the past as opposed to him doing what he does now on the past. So Paul, you look primed.
Yeah, all I was going to say, I think it comes back to what James was saying, sort of thing, is that you can't take like an old episode, you can't add color to it, add a new musical score to it, shove it in a blender, and come up with this like Doctor Who smoothie that you can then give to the new audience and expect them to sort of say, this is fantastic, this is what I really, really want, this is really getting me to buy into the to the older series. And whereas I think, as James sort of said, if you like the new series and you're really that much into it, you'll go back and you'll look at the old stuff and you'll take it in the context of its time. And it doesn't need to be trying to take 10 episodes, squeeze them down to 90 minutes, adding a bit of color, adding a new soundtrack, throwing in a few sort of references to the new show sort of thing isn't suddenly going to make you sort of think, wow, this old stuff's amazing. Because one, you're going to not, there's only, what have you got? You've got the Daleks, you've got the War Games to go and look at in this kind of format. You've got a cut down version of the Pyramids of Mars, which was just sort of like they chopped a few bits and pieces out of when they sort of showed that with the Sutek elements. So, but anything else you want to go and view, it's going to be of its time. It's going to be in a different format. So, just bite the bullet, sort of thing. In the same, as you said, in the same way you do that with Star Trek. If you like, like Enterprise, you like Next Generation, but you go back to the original series. The original series is very different, but the quality and the love that you have for the original series is because of what it is and because of its time. So.
I mean, Paul, we get fanciful sometimes on this show. We go to like place the imagination as well as things that we've seen on the screen. But geez, a world in which someone liked Enterprise. Come on, let's just keep it realistic somewhere. Just quickly, did you have anything on the score, Jim?
No, nothing that you haven't said. No.
Yeah, I think that's all it needs. Is really, it just doesn't fit really. I'm sorry, and I really hate saying that because Murray Gold's great, but he shows that he is truly at heart a modern composer. I don't think he's got the sensibilities for a classic score. I mean, I think there are some people who've kind of got a skill for that. And they might be able to modernize a classic score and kind of keep the classic score and just vibe it up a bit, but it just completely changed it. So let's talk about the cuts which they made. To me, it's much like when Labour made their announcements of the cuts to the winter fuel payments. Yes, this made the paints much punchier, but I think they could have been a little bit more studious with their cuts and not gone quite as far as they did. Come on, how's that for a link? When there was one line particularly which I was really surprised they cut, and please do correct me if I'm wrong. I only watched this once. I didn't have time to watch back, so if they did include this, please do correct me. But I think they cut one of my favorite lines, which is near the end when Jamie and Zoe are saying goodbye to the Doctor, or talking about they insist on going with him to try and outrun the Time Lords, and he goes, she goes, "Oh, don't you have any family?" He goes, "Oh well, I do, but I have to really think about them. I have to concentrate if I want to bring them to mind. We've got another life. We kind of travel the universe and we saw all these wonderful things. It's like, it's not a bad life, is it?" And his way of talking about family in a way I don't think Doctor Who to that point had, I thought would have been right up RTD Street for a start. I'm really surprised out of all the lines that seemed the most close to RTD in the classic series. And I just thought that was just so lovely. I was surprised at some of those kind of like cuts. I get why you cut things which just like slow down the pace and they were maybe spin their gears and filling in some pages where they did have to write on the fly, but not stuff like that, which just adds so much. I thought. What did you guys think of the cuts they made and the pace in it? I quite enjoyed it. I think they went too far.
Yeah, there's just no time to breathe with it. Like when I talked earlier, the whole thing is it looks like a World War I thing. Then suddenly the Romans are there, and then you get the American Civil War. Then you get the aliens. Then you get the Time Lords. and you need a bit more dramatic space to let that breathe for that to have an impact. Whereas I was trying to keep sort of checking the episode descriptions as I was going along to see roughly how much they were cutting, and I think the first episode they more or less just half the runtime, and then the second episode more or less the same. So they do let the beginning play out with a bit of space, but then it just ramps up and ramps up and ramps up to the point that it's just breakneck, and all these things are being thrown in. And I know I joked about running up and down the corridors, and you know they did take the sweet time with certain things, but there's bits in this where it's okay, we need to rescue Zoe. Boom, she's rescued. Right. We need to rescue Jamie. We need a disguise. I've got the disguise. I've got Jamie. Off we go. And it's like, what? And that doesn't create drama. There's no tension if you establish that the Doctor needs to rescue Jamie. Okay, there is a problem with this plan. We need a disguise. That creates dramatic tension, but there is no dramatic tension if we immediately cut to the Doctor with a disguise and then we immediately cut to him rescuing Jamie. You know,
yes,
it doesn't do anything. It's just a plot point, but it's not drama, if that makes sense.
Yes, exactly what I was saying with the kind of like the end scene, that particular bit of dialogue I love, but I think there's also kind of lost some of the tenderness, the kind of speed at which they said goodbye, like, you know, to the same kind of thing. It's, you know, you need to set something up and then let it breathe for a second before you then resolve it. It's like, Doctor, we can't possibly say goodbye to you. Goodbye. It's, you know, we'll go on the line from the Time Lords. Oh, they found us. You know, it's like, it's the same thing. Paul?
Yeah, no, I felt it almost felt like they wanted to get to sort of the latter half of the story as quickly as possible. So you, at the beginning sort of thing, and I found this really, really jarring the first time I watched it sort of thing, you sort of like, you know, basically the Doctor and Zoe and Jamie, they hit the trenches, you know, they get in the trench. Next thing, they're up for a court-martial. Hang on. What? Why are they up for? You've got no story where they whatsoever. And it just seemed like they wanted to run as quickly as possible up to the point where, like, the war chief, you know, to get in the master link, appeared, and then it slowed down a bit, and it was better for it at that point because you got more of the, okay, you're in the Warlords HQ, you've got more of the sort of the back and forth sort of thing, you know, the calling in of the Time Lords, you know, the working of the war chief with the Doctor, and you know, and it slowed down, so you got more of the original story at that point. But up until that point, sort of thing, you just seem to hammer through as much as you possibly could, sort of thing, you know, in no man's land, out of no man's land, here's the Romans, here's not the Romans, here's the Civil War, as James sort of said, and until we can get to a point where we've made it, right, let's slow down, let's do a little bit of storytelling, because what we actually want to head towards is a regeneration, parting, establishing Time Lord lore, getting the master references in. So no, I agree with all that. I think we now head towards the end. Before we get into the regeneration itself, I do just shout out to the original kind of like writing of the Time Lords, and the idea that it feels here they're more kind of like, even though they're the non-interference people where the Doctor wants to get involved, and that maintains throughout, here they're more cerebral. You feel like they're almost like a religion of science, like, you know, that feels very strong here with the robes and everything, and the way they're stood kind of almost in a chorus watching the screen, you know, that it's, whereas later on they went straight for the political with Tom Baker's time, and it kind of like evolved, and those wonderful huge headpieces. But I kind of love this original take on it, and you sort of could see how a society could go from that to being very beard strokey, very religious, like, you know, swapping religion for politics. It's something that happens, you know, we're seeing in America right now, let's face it, you know, or the merge of those two things. It's kind of like really interesting, that journey they went on, and I kind of love we get this prototype Time Lords here. The moment which I want to talk about, though, it was the bit where they did have the, oh, that one's too short, that one's too skinny, and they showed the other Doctors. I will say this, as a bit of writing on its own, I thought it was really cute. It was really like, I love it as a kind of concept if it was written today in Doctor Who. This is what I'm talking about, though, of like, it's not
trying to expose people to what was originally there and zhuzh it up a bit, if you like. It's rewriting it, and this feels very, to me, disrespectful to the original writers, to the original episode, to the original actors. You even, like, RTD is quite, like, he does that thing of taking episodes out, like actors out, like he did with the An Adventure in Time and Space and Time, where Matt Smith probably gave up some time to film that bit, like, or maybe they caught him while it was on set, I don't know, but like he recorded that bit with our new first Doctor, and you know, it's like, and then they replaced him with Shooty. As much as I love Shooty, I just, like, you've just taken an actor off their fucking job. Like, that annoys me. Like, you've just taken some writing out of the writer's hands and gone, no, I know better. Like, it's changing their script. It's not presenting it in a new way, and that to me feels too intrusive. Your thoughts on that, whoever?
Cool, James.
I'm sorry. It's just gimmicky. We're gonna put these new Doctors in here, and yeah, it just feels like a gimmick. It wouldn't have even been as bad if they'd have included a mix of the classic Doctors and the new Doctors.
Yeah.
That would have made it feel more of a, like, Doctor Who is a whole, but it seemed to be, no, here's the new ones, you know them, look, you like them. Though in defense, I may be wrong about this, it's a while since I've watched the War Games, but wasn't it hand-drawn sketches rather than photos when they showed him
so.
the options?
I think if I remember correctly, because they were crew members, so I think what they did was they took, because I think,
I see.
if I remember, well, maybe they used them as references, because I think you're right, it was pictures, but I think no, I might be mixing up with Morbius.
Yeah,
Either way,
Morbius.
I'm mixing up with Morbius. No, never mind. Sorry, no, you're right. It was pictures.
Either way, it's unnecessary. It doesn't add anything. It's like when they put Hayden Christensen as a Force ghost in Return of the Jedi. There's just no
taking someone else's job. That just,
and if anything, I think even this mythical young viewer that we're trying to hook on old Doctor Who by having them watch this ain't gonna fool them. They're gonna go, "Oh, see what they've done there." So yeah, I don't get it.
I mean, I get none of us are guaranteed a job for life, but you think once you film something, probably, you know, so that's probably going to stay in the film. Oh no, I'm no longer in that film or in that TV show. It just feels so wrong to me. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, but I think, as I said before, sort of thing. It's like trying to put in hooks, and it's trying to put in those, you know, those sort of like cherries into the smoothie that people are going to say, "Oh, Matt Smith, that's my Doctor." You know, David Tennant, that's my Doctor, and you've got those references to it. But it as you said, it's unnecessary. It would have made more sense to either use the Morbius Doctors or just some random faces, because it doesn't. As I say, trying to hook in this viewer isn't going to happen. It's not going to work, especially if you're putting it on BBC4 for starters. So it's
yeah, I mean, just thank God they've never gone and messed with the Five Doctors several times. Well, at least they didn't change the story there. Like, oh God, RTD, don't touch the Five Doctors. It's been changed enough. Like, and they never. If anything, I think they included extra scenes, but that's another story.
Oh no, come on, do go back, do the Five Doctors and put Tom Baker in. Like, actually have the Fourth Doctor take an active role in it.
They sort of did, because they took scenes from Shadar, which was the
but they did that in the original broadcast.
Yeah. No, but Shadar, no, but that's what I mean. It's like, it was kind of, I did like that, and in the extended version, as opposed to at the end, they had a kind of a bit from another bit of the episode, which never made any sense. So it's like it's been put back in time at a totally different point of the story.
That's what I mean, though. If you're going to muck about with it, let's get Tom Baker in a mocap suit. Let's get him to record new scenes, and then we'll CGI him as young Tom Baker, and let's put him in.
At least he'd be the original actor then.
Very true.
Yeah, I did like when they messed about with the Five Doctors, they put it so he went back into the same moment. So you see the gondola going down the river.
Yeah.
I will give him that. That was an improvement. But anyway, sorry, that's for the Five Doctors episode. So finally, we go on to Regeneration. So I don't like the fact that RTD seems to have to make every regeneration uniform. I think You let the
No, I
original
don't like that.
regenerations be
Yeah.
different. I kind of always liked the idea that after the Time War, it changed the energy so that the regeneration does look like it does now. That you could have a lovely in character reason. I like the fact that they included a bit of a kind of like they did in a lot of the original regenerations. They had some clips of the Second Doctor remembering moments as he regenerated. I thought that was very sympathetic to the piece. Again, it didn't feel like rewriting so much as adding something in the flavor. It made it a bit more holistic to the whole, the future of the original series. It just fit very nicely. And then you've got this scene where it almost seems like they are going to do Troughton's face molding into, because you see it changing into Pertwee's.
Yeah.
But then they go on to do the full-on modern regeneration, but they use a bit from Devious, which was the fan film where they got Pertwee to come in, and it was as if he temporarily became someone else so this fan could play him, and then they got Pertwee to actually film the end of it. So it gave him the proper regeneration. So it did see him stumbling out the TARDIS, which then leads into his first appearance. But they did it just with him the age he was then, which was quite funny in of itself, because it's like he suddenly goes from what was he, 80 or whatever it was, to then he's back to being 40 or whatever it was when he filmed it, when he falls out the TARDIS. But I admired the scope of it. I jest, but it's like, so here you kind of rejuvenate him. You do have Troughton landing in that chair he was in Devious. So there was sort of there was some nice elements they brought together, but just let it be an original type of regeneration if you're going to do that.
Yeah. I mean, the bit that I enjoyed the most out of all of that sort of thing was the clock sort of thing, where it was just switching between 1970, 1980, 1970, 1980. And the fact that it had the error code was Maldrin spelt backwards.
All right.
So, I didn't realize that, because I get it. Okay, like for anyone who doesn't go as deep as we do on it, it's like, so it was kind of heavily implied that the episodes in the 70s were in the 80s on Earth, but they don't say here. Is that correct? I don't think they ever.
Yeah, exactly. It sort of like switches. It's never really. It's always sort of like some stuff's set in the 70s, some stuff set in the 80s, sort of thing. It's never really established. So it's
because friend of the show Brian Coombs, he had this thing that when they did Twice Upon a Time, that mustn't have been it was clearly meant, to my eyes anyway, it was clearly meant to be Brigadier's dad, Hamish, in that episode. And he goes, no, it must have been the granddad, because those episodes were set in the 80s. I get that, but let's face it, we've kind of rationalized it down to it happened in the year it was in, because otherwise nothing else makes sense for the Doctors going forward, because they're always in the time they're in, apart from that Doctor where they sort of wrote it to be anyway. But it's like it was cute. I think you've got to accept that that's even if they didn't say, I think that was meant to be Brigadier's dad. But yeah, it's I like that.
Ooh, so does this mean that because they've now shown this regeneration, does this blow out all the fan theory season 6B where he does secret missions for the Time Lords, and so is all that out the window now officially?
Well, that's a good point, because they did. They're even actually at the moment doing that very thing on Big Finish with Michael Troughton playing his dad.
No, send it back.
Yeah. And actually, I've got to say, my gut, I was a bit dubious, because he goes oh, I'm going to do my own thing, which I'm always like, you're going to be playing your dad if you do your own thing too. But he's done a wonderful job. It actually does add the fact that he's done his own thing, whereas doing so many nods to his dad, it makes so much better than if he was doing an impression. He was right, I was wrong, doodah. Michael, you're a genius. It's just such a lovely portrayal of the Second Doctor, and knowing that it's Patrick's son in real life, as well as such a wonderful actor, is just so delicious. I just thought I'd bring that up, seeing as you mentioned that. Yeah, I think, though, that, I mean, we don't see that moment, and obviously that's where the theory came from, but you can always just say it's they whispered them away in the heat of the regeneration.
Yeah, of course you can.
We don't see it, it's in the split second of time.
Yeah, it was never going to be shown on screen anyway, so I think anybody who likes that theory, you can still hang on to
I think
that.
they
And
felt that on TV they'd sort of superseded it with the Fugitive Doctor, because now that's the same sort of thing. The
yeah,
Time
yeah.
Lords have nicked
Yeah.
that Doctor to go on missions for them, which is a bit weird because they're now using her on Big Finish as well. So they've kind of done the same storyline. So the Doctor twice got nicked by the Time Lords to do their bidding, but doesn't remember it the second time round. Which, like, surely if you're going to send him on the same mission of them, then wouldn't you give them those memories back of when they did it before and were really good at it? Anyway, we won't go into that. Final thoughts, guys, on the War Doctor. The War Doctor, the War Games in colour. I'm going to give it a. I mean, I think it's a solid 5 out of 10. Like it's not awful. They've taken a few too many liberties for my liking. They've cut too much, but it's very watchable. I still don't think I'm quite reaching for this before the original War Games, though. I can't think of circumstance.
No.
Even if I'm in a hurry, it's just I'll wait and watch it later, or as you say, I'll watch it in serialized kind of format. But it's a lot closer to the mark, I think, than Daleks in Colour. If they could do one where it's just truthfully to the original, doing some tweaks to make the story just like work a little bit better, I'd be really intrigued to see that. But I don't think we've seen that yet. Sorry.
As a tech demo, it's great. You know, it's fine. But other than this going on someone's CV so that they can get a job working in special effects, going, look what I can do, I don't feel there's any artistic merit to it other than the technological showcase. And you know, if you get more from it than that, great. It was fine. I did actually really like where it showed the base, where it showed the dome, and it had like sort of Roman galleons next to it, but also Panzer tanks parked at it and Spitfires. I thought that was a great visual,
Yes.
and obviously you couldn't have done that back then. And it works within the context of this is the zhuzhed up version. But again, totally unnecessary. But you know, it's fine. It's fine. But
if anything, before we go over to Paul, just I was thinking, it's like if anything, some of these things might have made good YouTube content. So like if you'd done that bit of him picking the faces with the new Doctors there, that would have been a cute little sort of almost bonus thing you just chuck away. You don't rewrite the episode that way, but you still put your little joke on it.
I mean, that's what this is. It's effectively, this is fan fiction writ large. This is an alternate version. Okay, it's an officially endorsed fan fiction, but that's all it is. But the great thing is, if you go on your iPlayer, this is sat right next to the original 10-parter. If you don't ever want to watch this again, you don't have to.
Yeah, it actually keeps on telling me I've got to watch episode 2 now. It's like that wasn't episode 1. That was anyway. Paul, your final thoughts?
Yeah, my feeling on these is sort of I'm hoping we don't sort of get to the sort of next Christmas or whenever it is sort of thing, and we get another one of these. I'd rather see the money or the time spent going into something like Tales from the TARDIS sort of thing, where you reunite sort of like 2 older companions. You have a bit of play and you have a bit of fun with that sort of thing, and then you just show the original episodes, you know, the original story at that point, and
cleaned up a bit. Just do some digitally remastering. Give us that.
Exactly. So exactly. Give me the War Games on Blu-ray and a box set. Terrific.
That's it. Like the Blu-rays are doing a fantastic job cleaning up the old stories. They look amazing.
Yeah. So guys, thank you once again for joining us for this very timely Christmas special for Gallifrey Stands. Just great to touch base and talk about Doctor Who. So for me for now, that's been Gallifrey Stands. Joining me has been you, Paul.
Oh, are you pointing at me? Are you? Sorry,
I'm thinking you up
does it? Okay. Yeah, Paul who knew? So
as my fingering distracted him. And
Jim King, I Retrek podcast. If you want to listen to me talk about Star Trek as well,
with me and his
with
brother
Dr. Squee as well.
mentioned.
Yeah,
we will be there on Wednesday, so please join us. We're recording usual time at 6, I believe.
I think so. Yes.
which if you're Trek minded, we're going to be taking our first steps upon our road to explore the Brothers Moog. Sorry, Sons of Moog, I should say. That is, of course, Worf and his brother Kern. So please do join us for that. But in the meantime, thank you for joining me, gents. Thank you to Willow. I've been Dr. Squee, and until Doctor Who returns, and I probably rant some more about it, hopefully with these gents at some point. That has been Gallifrey Stands on the Dr. Squee Show, and a world where you can be truly anything. Please live like you've got two hearts and be kind.